Kevin Nash has said before that, like, they were younger and cooler and come up with these ideas, and Hulk was almost like the dad in some ways because he was older. Was it easy enough to kind of, combine them together?
Not at first. If you go back and you watch any of the early nWo stuff, when you see the black and white videos that were edited together very quickly, and it was like, all of the interviews that you ever saw in professional wrestling up to that point were Mean Gene Okerlund standing there with a microphone going, okay, Hulk Hogan, come on in here. You're going to wrestle the Macho Man Randy Savage. What do you think about that? It was that back and forth stickman kind of promo. And we tried that with Scott and Kevin and Hulk. The problem was each one of those guys were used to being the one guy that was up there doing that, right? Being the sole focus of a promo. That's creatively, it wasn't an ego thing, but creatively, that's what they had become accustomed to. Now we've got three of them together in a promo. And the first one or two that we did took about 14, 15 minutes. That doesn't work for television. You need to keep it to 1:30, 2 minutes. If you've got something really important to say, maybe 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Otherwise, the audience loses interest really fast. So we tried a couple where we would do it traditionally, and it was like, well, these guys are like, Hulk's going to talk for 5 minutes. Kevin's going to, you talk for 5. I'm going to go for 7. And Scott Hall's go, ooh, I'm going to do 10 just to see what they do. It was like, it was a abortion. It was horrible. So our director, Craig Leathers, and it wasn't my idea, it was Craig Leathers, our director, said, let's try something a little different. Let's just let them talk. Let them play off of each other for 15, 20 minutes. Let's film it in black and white. And then I'll edit it together so that it makes sense. And I wish I could take credit for that because it was a brilliant idea, and I'd sound really smart if I said it was my idea. But Craig Leathers was the director that went, let me just try something different. I went, because this ain't going to work. And when Craig did that and Scott and Kevin and Hulk saw it, it changed everything. Hulk realized that he had to change the way he did business. Scott and Kevin realized that being up there with Hulk Hogan really made them look bigger and better. It really changed the dynamic between the three of them.
And then obviously it started with the three of them, and then it ended up being, I think it was 124 nWo members in the end. But in terms of after, the first 4 or 5 people were in it, was there any criteria or reasoning from your end of considering putting someone in the nWo?
Initially, yes. Initially, if you look at Sean Waltman, we brought Sean Waltman in very specifically because, first of all, Sean was younger, and Sean was physically capable of doing all kinds of things in the ring that Hulk certainly couldn't do. Hulk was almost 300 pounds at that point, 6'6", 6'7", almost 300 pounds. And he was pretty beat up. He's in his 40s at that point and been wrestling 300 nights a year and had beat up his body. So he was already starting to, approach the downhill side of his physical abilities. Kevin Nash, as big as Kevin is, a guy like that isn't going to bounce around much. He's too big to bounce. Scott Hall could, but Scott Hall was a character that we wanted to protect. We didn't want somebody in the nWo that was selling at that level that was selling too much. Sean Waltman was a character that could come in and still had the vibe. He still had the personality. He just like he was born for the nWo, but you could bounce him around like a ping pong ball. And he could do a great job at it, and it wouldn't hurt his character. Whereas Scott Hall bouncing around like that, even though Scott was capable of it, Scott Hall selling that much would have hurt Scott Hall's character. Certainly would have killed Kevin Nash's character. It would have destroyed Hulk Hogan's character. But Sean Waltman could come in and still be that cool part of the NWO. He had that vibe, and you could bounce him around and he could sell, but it wouldn't hurt him. So that's why Sean Waltman came in. Conan was capable. Conan and I are really good friends. I just did his podcast about a week ago. But at the time, Conan was capable of having really good matches. If you go back and watch some of early Conan matches, he was awesome. But he wasn't the most inspired professional wrestler I'd ever worked with. He looked for the easy way out of a match often. He didn't sell as much. He didn't sell unless he absolutely had to or was motivated. But he had so much charisma. He had street cred. At that time, Conan, and to this day, Conan has his finger on the pulse of pop culture. And at that time, it was the hip-hop culture, it was the Latino, Mexican culture in the United States. And Conan had his finger on it long before it became a really big deal in the U.S. So bringing Conan in brought a different kind of street credibility to the nWo. So it was like casting. It's like casting a movie. And Conan fit. Then we brought in Virgil. And then it became an avalanche of people that didn't really contribute, but benefited from being a part of the nWo. And that was a mistake on my part.